Lynn Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello, 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 hello. This has been the best week meteorologically of the summer, without a doubt, right? Without a doubt. And apparently it's going to continue for a while. So enjoy, 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 enjoy. This is Thursday, the 23rd. It's a Friday to me because I'm not coming in tomorrow. And my next day will be next Tuesday. I have some traveling I have to do for pleasure. I will return with my mother in tow, and maybe if I can talk her into it, we'll get her on the show. Huh? I mean, that could be a little dicey. I don't know, but yeah. I mean, maybe not the full hour or something, but just so you can see from whence I came. And because she's pretty remarkable. She's going to be 93 in 2 weeks. Wow. So, a lot of stuff to talk about. First, I got to wet my whistle. Excuse me. There's a letter to the editor in the paper that made me crazy. I'm excited about this finding of this Quran. Is that weird? Do you know about that? I'm thrilled about the $15 increase in minimum wage in New York and in other places. I want to talk about Sandra Bland. Is it Sandra? Mm-hmm. Yes. And so there's a lot of stuff. Let me start with this letter that I just saw. Email. Lynn, I listened to your lengthy discussion of Theodore Bickel. That's his obituary, which I read yesterday. Or didn't read. I talked of him. Great actor, activist, good man. And I was dissing, what's his name? Dr. O, who there was a tweet that went out from his publisher saying no one could ever possibly say a bad word about E.L. Dr. O. And I thought, wrong. Incorrect. Because I did. And I got an email yesterday from a friend who had also been at the lecture that I saw Dr. O at that made me insane. He was so awful. And she too said, I thought of you, she said, when I saw that he had died. And she said she's a very big-hearted human being. And she said, and I felt an alarming lack of, and I forgot exactly how she put it, but she didn't feel sad to read of his death because she too had been so put off by him at that event. So, incorrect. There are plenty of people who can say a bad thing about that guy, especially anyone who was in that auditorium in Oakland about 10 years ago when he was here. I'm sorry. He presented himself as a jerk. First class. So, back to Theodore Bickel. Theodore Bickel, I listened to your lengthy discussion of Theodore Bickel. You often disdain lefties, but I never heard you mention this aspect of his life. Lefty? No. Celine just said lefties? He was left-handed? What do you... No. Like, people on the left of the political spectrum. And Celine saying, you disdain them? She thought I was one. No, I make a distinction. You know, there's distinctions, there's gradations. And there are plenty of people to the left of me, and some of them drive me insane. That's all. They drive me totally nuts. And because to me, they're sort of unthinking. They're ideological knee-jerky types, just like, you know, so anybody who gets too far to the edge, to me, loses credibility. I'm sorry. I'm much more of a moderate. Anyway, this guy says, you often disdain lefties, but I never heard you mention this aspect of his life. I said he was I said he was activist. I mentioned that he was a labor guy, that he was president of the Actors Equity, I think. I mentioned that he was very active in the civil rights movement. Right? So how did I say I never mentioned this aspect of his life? Oh, he's talking about, I did not mention a statement he had made. Well, this is interesting because now that you say that he made this statement, I didn't ever see this statement. Theodore and I were not on like really close terms, and so there are probably about 500 billion, trillion, gazillion statements that Theodore Bickel made that I would not have mentioned because I wouldn't have known he ever said it. I don't believe anything I said he said. I read a direct quote from his New York Times obituary, sir. The letter writer, the emailer, is on me because I didn't mention, as he says, his statement that he's talking to me, that your beloved Netanyahu should get out of office. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That didn't work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. My beloved Netanyahu? Anyone, don't raise your voice. Anyone who has ever listened to this show knows I cannot stomach Benjamin Netanyahu. I can't stomach his personality, and more than that, I can't stomach his policies. Okay? Apparently, Theodore Bickel had the same feelings about Netanyahu because he said that Netanyahu should get out of office. I would second that. I would love it. Unfortunately, it's a democracy there. So the people elect parliamentary form. But I would love it if Bibi got out of office. Although in Israel, you never know because it could get worse. I mean, you just don't know. May I now tell you, sir, that I think I mentioned that Theodore Bickel was an Israeli for some part of his life, his parents going there to what was then Palestine, British-mandated Palestine, in the 40s, before the state of Israel was declared in 1948, and that Bickel lived on a kibbutz, that's where he started acting, and that he left to attend the Royal Academy of of Drama in London, where he then, of course, continued his acting career. He was a fervent Zionist. This I know. He was totally outraged at the policies of the Netanyahu regime. He broke off with I'm trying to remember, the Southern Christian, no, it wouldn't be Southern Christian Leadership Council. Way back when, might have been the Black Panthers. I can't even remember. He was affiliated in his civil rights era in the 60s. He pulled away from one group when they equated Zionism with racism. Bickel publicly distanced, left. You, sir, whoever you are, attempting, as you lefties or any righties or lefties do, to reduce everything to some kind of right, wrong, black, white, are, as you clearly show in this little email you've sent me, you're just flat out wrong on so many counts, it's a joke. Theodore Bickel and I were very much on the same page in regard to Israel. We fervently believe in its right to exist. We do not, however, agree in any way. In fact, we condemn the current policies of its government. Current government. Lefties drive me nuts. His last sentence is, since this is such a major area of disagreement, this is Tim, I didn't see it. I am surprised you left it out. You are totally incorrect. As I said, totally incorrect in this. I bet if Theodore Bickel and I had had an opportunity to sit down and talk about Israeli politics, we would be so simpatico, it would be like we were one and the same person. Oh, okay. Here's an email that came in late in the day, and I didn't get a return response, although I asked for one. Someone wrote, I agree with you so much of the time, including about the puppies. I left about this new thing, puppy parties, where you get a bunch of puppies and everybody plays with them. And she agrees with me on showers, meaning bridal showers. But okay, we got a caller? Okay, hello? Hello, caller?
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
I know what you mean. I'm probably in the between, like moderate too, like that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Who do you think's wrong in like the Palestine Palestinians or whatever you call them.
Who's wrong?
And Israel.
No
Who
one's
do you think-
wrong. Everybody, listen, here's
Both
why.
sides?
Here's what's so intractable about that. Both sides have absolutely legitimate claims to the same piece of real estate. Both sides have been victimized in their history. Both sides have been sent running from their homes. Both sides, you know what drives me crazy about it is Palestinians and Israelis are cousins. You know, this is a family fight, and some of the worst fights are familial. There is so much we hold in common, including our love for that land and our history there. I don't know what to tell you, and there is not. The reason I don't talk about this is because there is no subject, none, that I can think of at the moment, that makes me despair as much as this subject. And I see also, and here's what I want to, well, I don't know. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it because it'll inflame that's my, who's right, who's wrong? Both.
Okay.
Both.
That's how I feel, too.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so implacable and
Another thing I wanted to ask you, do you ever notice when, like, I'm not going to even say what it is. I'm just going to say one group is mad because another group's not having enough of their group in something. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to bring out any color or anything like that.
Okay.
When they get in charge of it, then they do the same thing they were bitching about.
Well, then what does that tell you?
I don't know.
I think what that tells you...
It's like, now they complain because they had too much of this. Now they get it. They got too much of theirs. I think
that's what...
human nature, I guess.
Exactly. That's my answer to so much. It's funny because my son and I were driving downtown this morning, and we were having this same conversation. He had seen a documentary last night. He was telling me about it. It was, I think, called White People. And it was white people dealing with the fact that the projections say that in the year 2000, whatever it is, 65 or something, or 50, they will no longer be a majority in this country. No one's going to have a majority. It'll be, other than white will be the majority, but that takes in, brown, black, yellow, red, all whatever silly colors we put on people. And my son is not white. My son is brown. And my son was saying, it's just amazing, he said, how in denial and how fearful these white people were. And I was saying, when you've had a position of privilege and or of status, there are very few people, no matter what color, religion, or anything, that willingly give that up. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so people are people.
Now, I made a statement the other day when I told you about the Irish. I don't even care about that. I'm not that type of person who cares what color or whatever. I just always look at the person. If I'm going to hate you, it's not because you're this. I'm going to hate you because I don't like something you do. Or,
right.
I don't care. I've always been that way. I've had friends, like that I had were black, and I had friends that were different. I don't care about that. I probably shouldn't have said that. I apologize for that. But I just amazing how these people think. They just blows my mind, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for the call. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of that, before I get back to this other email, because it reminded me, I'm reading a book now. Don't even ask me what the title is. Whenever I'm reading a book, I don't know what the title is. Whenever I see a movie, I don't remember the title either. I just don't. Things like that do not stick in my head. And I read and it fit into my conversation with my son, and I was telling him about it. I thought it was so... Oh, my God. Hello, caller. Hi. Goodbye. So, it's a book. The thing I was reading was a woman, Irish, white American, right? Irish, white American, right? Living in a part of New York City in the 70s that is turning. It's going from a lower middle class to a little lower middle class. And there's an influx of Hispanics and African Americans and Indians and Asians and all kinds of, whatever. It's and she is desperate to get out. She feels her home value is being depressed. She doesn't know these people. She doesn't like their loud music. She's reacting like so many white people do. And, a store that used to be a store she loved to go into is now a bodega selling things that she doesn't even know about. And so she's really... And she's an educated woman. She's a nurse, actually a head nurse at Bronx Hospital. And one day, coming back from work, she's walking down to the sidewalk, and she sees coming toward her a group of, it's unclear to me whether they're black or Hispanic, but brown or black young men. And they're taking up the entire sidewalk, and they are coming at her. And she looks at them and thinks, oh, my God, I'm supposed to go into the street? And she thinks, no, I won't. I'm making a stand. And I forgot to say that as this group was walking toward her, there was one of them who had his back turned, who was actually looking at his compatriots and talking to them and gesticulating. He was walking backward. And she held her ground, and the one walking backward, bang, bumped into her. Wheeled around, and seeing it was this middle-aged white lady, immediately said, oh, excuse me. She's a little surprised by, oh, excuse me. She's figuring he's going to say, hey, you white bitch, white. He didn't say that. But she couldn't even take it in. So she said, you should not be taking up the entire sidewalk and blah, 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 blah. She didn't accept the apology. She starts screaming at him. He listens. He says again, I'm very sorry. Didn't see you. Didn't mean to. And he said it very sensitively, blah, 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 blah. This blows her mind. She can't take it in. It goes against the idea, the knowledge, the certainty that she has about who those kids are. And so after the second apology, she still says, you people are coming into this neighborhood and you're blah, blah, blah. And then she sees some of these kids get their, they're wanting to. Here, she's finally going to get what she expected in the first place, except she doesn't, because the kid who bumped into her says, lady, I was born here. This is my neighborhood. And then he motioned for his friends to part so that she could walk through. She walks on and is shaken by the experience because it wasn't what she'd expected. It went against every stereotypical negative idea and assumption she had about who those kids were coming at her. By the time she gets home and is sitting down with her family at dinner, she tells them what happened to her, only the story she tells is the story she thought would happen, not the story that did happen. She says, they bumped into me, and then they started saying, you white bitch, you this, that, blah, blah, blah. She completely not only couldn't take it in, couldn't admit it, couldn't acknowledge it, and had to reform the story. And the novelist makes quite clear that after a day or two, even she had come to believe the story she was telling as opposed to the reality. And that's sometimes how memory is false. I thought that little section was so telling because we're all capable of that kind of thing, of unwillingness so strong, or a fear so strong, that evidence to the contrary is simply unacceptable. And it is not accepted. And I don't think white people are the only people who do that. I think, as the caller said, so much of what goes on is human nature. Human nature has some wonderful aspects to it, and not all humans would have done what she did. Some humans work very hard at overcoming that aspect of their nature, and others don't put up a fight at all. They totally, not only do they succumb to it, they revel in it. All right. Where were we? So this is a question I have. So someone emailed me and said, I agree with you so much of the time, including the puppies and the fact that I hate baby showers, bridal showers, engagement showers, they all seem like shakedowns to me. But she said, but I am surprised you use the term, and I didn't remember using it, use the term ragging. And I asked, so this happened, I read this after the show ended, and I asked Celine, what's wrong with the word ragging? And did you know? Celine did not know. I did not know. We wondered if it had something to do with, what do you think it had to do? I thought it might have to do with menstruation. Huh?
I had no idea.
Like on the rag. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we thought maybe it has to do with menstruation. It's a sexist term, you think? I don't know. But here, the person has now said, ragging for a female to have her period. Okay. Used in, okay, well, I'm not going to do. Well, I think it has other definitions. I didn't use it as that. And I refuse to let that word just disappear into that. There's a million possible definitions, and ragging is not necessarily about a woman having her period. That's all I'm going to say. Hello, caller.
Hopefully I didn't interrupt something that you were talking about. It's happened a few times.
Well, here's what you interrupted.
Okay.
The definition of ragging.
Oh, that's like talking about somebody, insults.
Yes! That's what I think, and that's how I used it. Mm-hmm. But a female listener yesterday said she was shocked that I used the word ragging, and I couldn't figure out why. And then she's just sent me a definition, and she says it's the top definition in whatever dictionary she went to, and it says for a female to have her period.
That's on the rag.
See, I think it's on the rag too, but they say here that as the definition, then they do a sentence showing it used in a sentence. Mm-hmm. Damn, man, that bitch was ragging so bad she bled all over my bed.
I have never heard that in my life.
Either have I.
It might be something that the youth use, Yeah, well, if I'm ragging on somebody, that means I'm insulting them.
Yeah, right. You're
really
squawking
messing around,
about it.
and it's playful.
Is it? Okay, you think it's playful?
Yeah, ragging. Yeah, I'm just ragging on you, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you, and thank to the emailer. It's interesting because I did figure out what it must be because of on the rag.
Yeah.
But I never heard it used as a verb like that.
Me neither.
Okay.
But that's not why I'm calling.
I know.
Oh.
That's. Go ahead, do it.
Yeah. It was you're talking about human nature and making assumptions.
Yeah.
As you were reading that story, and I know I've heard this story before, but that everybody's heard it. It reminded me of the time I was in art school catching a bus early in the morning that it was still dark. And I'm standing at the bus stop, and an elderly lady is sitting inside one of those little covers. So when I get there, I stand outside of it because I don't want to scare her.
She's a white lady.
Older white lady sitting there. And so I don't want to scare her, so I stand outside the thing and wait for the bus. Then it started raining.
I was going to say, was it a torrential downpour?
Yeah, it started raining. So I moved inside, and in my, kindest, thinking now, I'm a young black male at this time. In my kindest voice, I said, "Good morning." And she said, "Oh, good morning. Oh, it's so nice of you to say something to me. Most young people don't want to talk to the elderly people." And that was a lesson to me.
Yeah.
I made the assumption.
Right, but you made the assumption out of sensitivity.
Yeah, but still. I made an assumption that she was going to be afraid of me because of my skin color.
Right.
But her assumption was that I didn't talk to her because she was old.
Isn't that interesting? So you both had these. Oh wow! Isn't that something? We're something.
Aren't we?
Yeah.
But unlike most people that I've learned, that I've met in my lifetime, I learned a valuable lesson.
Yes.
And just one more quick story, and this has to do with a former regular caller named Blovius.
Mm-hmm.
I can't forget where we were going. It's probably golfing or something stupid that he likes to do. And we stop at a biker's bar. Now, Blovius is messing with me. I know he is. But he doesn't know that I'm.
Well, let's describe. Okay, wait a minute. Blovius is a tall guy with. Did he have long?
Yeah, long hair. And
looks like an old hippie.
He's an old hippie with the goatee and the whole bit. He almost looks like a biker.
Yeah, he okay. And you are.
I'm like 5'10", medium complected. Black guy.
Black guy. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I think at this time I was bald too. And me, I don't look anything like a hippie.
Right, this is true.
I almost look like a suburban black,
That's right.
But so we go into the biker bar, and of course they look at us, right? We sit down at the bar, and we order, and they have a trivia contest up on the chalkboard. Answer any question, and you can have your choice between a beer or wings, right? So I ran the board. And the funny thing was, because I'm not going to eat a bunch of wings, so I was asking the biker dudes, so what do you want, beer or wings? Yeah, give me some wings, brother. Get this guy some wings. And as we were leaving, they were like, "All right, brother, good to meet you, brother. Hey, bro, yeah." It was hilarious.
Aren't those the greatest experiences when all those assumptions are just blown to pieces? Everybody gets along.
Well, just the fact that I ran the board is because what am I going to do with that? I don't drink one, and then a black guy can only eat so many wings without watermelon.
Right, you.
Didn't see that punchline coming.
No. Do you think are there black people who, when they go to the grocery store in sort of a white, mostly white area, and they want a watermelon?
I know.
Don't get a watermelon. Tell me.
I know those people. Yeah.
There are.
They're in my family. There's certain things they won't do because people are. And me, I'll exaggerate. I'll get a big piece of watermelon and look like I came right out of a 40s cartoon when I'm eating it. But but I know people like that. I remember one time talking about how cheap I was, and you said, "Well, I can't do that."
Yeah, that's right. I said I go out of my way. I overtip. I do anything. I will. Yeah. This idea that Jews are cheap. No, you go out of your way. And when I'm around a Jew who is cheap, I want to kill him.
So I think what's happened here, we've been reversed.
Right.
Because I've been watching a lot of, I forget the name of the show, but it's on Showtime, and I forget the guy's name, but he does this thing where he talks to comedians. What is his name? Steven Steinberg or something? Oh, he's older. He's from back in the day, like Second City. But most, of course, I'm saying of course, but most of the comedians he talked to, and I didn't realize it, were Jewish comedians. And I'm like, I'm a Jew. I was watching, Seinfeld's Comedians in Cars. And I think I told you, I really relate to Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah,
I said, oh, I see what happened. So now, y'all don't believe in race and religion and all that stuff, but culturally, I'm a Jew. I'm just saying it.
Okay.
A Reformed Jew.
Welcome to the fold.
All right.
Okay.
You gotta send me some. I got like schmear and meal and all those kind of things.
I will send you. I will send you the perfect book so you can get your Yiddish up to speed.
Get it up to par. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Great talking to you.
Same here.
Bye,
Okay.
Clarence.
Bye.
Okay. Ray has written in about ragging etymology. Rag means to scold and comes from the Dutch slang for grudge. Not rag as in sanitary napkin. False assumption. What? Why does the term sanitary napkin make you... Celine went like... Because you've never used one?
No, it's just...
Oh, it's like you don't want to talk about it. No. What?
It's just weird.
Weird?
It's so sterile. So.
Sanitary napkin. Sanitary napkin. Yeah, but you don't remember the good old days.
No.
Yeah. You can't imagine what sanitary... You had to wear... Do you... On certain days, a woman could have around her body so many things, holding so many things in place. You would have, am I remembering this right? I'm remembering an elastic thing
Garter.
around my waist, that then you hooked on, there wasn't any like adhesive things, so you had to hook them onto hooks. Does anybody remember that? I'm sort of blanking on exactly what that contraption was. And then, for stockings, you had other things hanging down, clips, all this crap. And I remember when Tampax became rage, my mother said, "You can't use one of those," because she thought it would devirginate me.
So what do you think of the Diva Cup?
So Celine asked, what do I think of a Diva Cup? I don't even know what it is. Look, I'm menopausal. Why would I know a Diva Cup? What's a Diva Cup?
Diva Cup is a little it's not a harmful plastic. It's BPA free, but it's a flexible cup
That just collects the blood.
Yep, that you insert in and then you rinse out.
Ugh.
Totally works though.
Yeah, but...
And it's amazing.
So it's like a diaphragm in that it goes in.
Less wasteful, less harmful.
Yes, but how do you know if it's... Oh, well, you'd know if it's running over.
You just get accustomed to using it.
And it's reusable?
Lasts for a few years.
Lasts for a few years? You just have one?
Yep.
And it isn't icky to take it out and the blood doesn't go splattering all over the place? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's amazing.
Jeez. Okay.
Great for camping.
A Diva Cup. Why don't they call them that?
Because all ladies are divas.
All right. Well, whatever. So they're in the drugstore? Sold as what? Not Diva Cups. Diva Cups is the name?
That's the brand.
What's it called?
It's called a Diva Cup. That's the
Diva
brand.
Cup is the brand.
That's amazing. You gotta look this up.
Well, I didn't know. I didn't know because, I mean, I'm a dried up old lady. I get one of the greatest, I'll tell you. I don't know if some women don't like menopause, but I thought, yes! Yes! I think when people called it the curse, right on. Oh, man. Ugh. What women have to go through. How lovely to be a woman. The wait was well worthwhile. How lovely to wear mascara and smile a woman's smile. How lovely to have a figure that's round instead of flat. How lovely that when men whistle, you're what they're whistling at. How wonderful to feel the way a woman feels. Da-da-da-da-da-da, wearing lipstick and heels. Have you ever heard that?
No.
That is the worst. I think that's a Rodgers and Hammerstein song. I think it's from a musical that now is never put on. Not because it's so outrageously sexist, but because it's racist. I think it's from Flower Drum Song. Seriously. Look it up. Margie writes, it's so nice not to have a period. Yes, it is. But wasn't it exciting when you first got one? I remember my brother humiliating my sister at dinner one night when he knew she'd gotten her first period. I mean, you know, you're self-conscious. I remember he said something. Oh, God. Susan was just beside herself. Okay, were we going to talk about something today? What the hell has gone on with this show? Oh, yeah, there was a letter to the editor I need to rag on somebody here. I have a vague sense that I've met this person, actually. But get out of the way, I'm about to rag on him. This is a guy who's written a letter in defense of the landlords who were going to toss all those poor people out onto the street with the, what was it, 60 days notice or 90 days notice? Because they want to get them out because it's a lot of, they're not paying all that much because they're poor. And they're in East Liberty, and now you can get much better rates. So they wanted to update the facility and start making some money. And if I didn't update that story for you, I will do so now. The mayor has at least gotten them to back off. Oh, wait, before I do this, both Ray and Clarence are coming in on Diva Cups. Clarence writes, I had to look that up. Okay, and Ray writes, please stop.
Oh, yeah.
Hell with you. All right. So I can't remember exactly what's being done, but they've got a little bit of more of a pad of time. They still know they're going to have to go, but the mayor has stepped in. And there was an article in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette about it, and this is in response to that. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But, well, maybe I will, because I don't want to selectively edit. This is from Jim Abraham in Squirrel Hill. There's been a great deal of whining and hand-wringing lately as East Liberty experiences its greatest redevelopment in decades. As the neighborhood sees vast improvements, the cost of enjoying those new amenities naturally increases. One would, of course, expect to pay more for living in a better neighborhood. This truism has been lost on many current residents of East Liberty for quite some time. And now Mayor Bill Peduto seems unable to understand it. By interfering with the redevelopment of private property, the mayor stymies not just that particular project, but threatens future investment as well. He has made this intent very clear, and then he quotes the mayor. We've got to make sure this is the stand that is taken so other developers in the city know this is not how we do business in the city, he said recently, coddling and enabling a group of disgruntled tenants. Taking a stand against those who would develop, invest in, and improve a long-neglected neighborhood. Is he kidding? Mr. Abraham goes on. The people being priced out of the new East Liberty have done too little, too late. They did little with the neighborhood in the decades they had it and allowed it to fall into disrepair. Now they're complaining that others have come along and are improving it. One is not entitled to live where he wants to live. One is entitled to live where he can afford to live. Where do we start with that? Where do we start with that? First of all, Mr. Abraham, I want to suggest to you that you have a hard heart. A cold heart. Disgruntled tenants, huh? Those are people who have lived in that neighborhood, many for decades. They have paid their rent. They have caused no trouble. Oh, I know, they're not rich, which makes them apparently, I guess, people that can just be booted out of their homes like that when the rich people decide, I think I can make even more money with that little piece of real estate that poor person is calling home. I hate the way these developers always couch their business in like altruistic terms. We are improving the neighborhood. You are lining your effing pockets, and that is all you are doing. That is your motivation. It is the only motivation. A reputable developer would be always aware of the human consequence of his actions, would make effort to make sure that those people who had lined his pockets, not as much, but given him their hard-earned, whatever they had, money, so that they could have a roof over their heads, that they would be eased maybe out if they had to leave and would be aided in finding proper and good. These are people for whom that is their community. They didn't do enough to improve it when it was their community. They're poor. Why are some of them poor? I suppose Mr. Abraham thinks because they're lazy. That's because that's what rich people seem to think. How about, Mr. Abraham, they're poor because of racial injustice, because of employment discrimination, because we do not have good schools in their neighborhoods, because there is a systemic effort to keep that ladder greased for the poor in this country, and you guys, people like you, have greased it like never before. You suggest that Mayor Peduto's statements, that that's not the way we do business in our city, which, by the way, Mayor Peduto is a little disingenuous on that front. You suggest that if that kind of statement comes from the mayor's office, that you developers might be, well, reluctant to continue your investment. As you put it, acquiescence to this attitude will slow, if not blunt, I think that's the same thing, the regrowth and resurgence of East Liberty. In other words, you're saying you guys will take your filthy lucre elsewhere? No, you won't. No, you won't. No, you won't. You're the job creators, remember? All of us would be nothing without you, remember? You wonder why people are poor? People are poor because assholes like you don't pay people enough. The rich. That's why, yay! New York City is about to mandate, oh, that government again. They're about to mandate that fast food workers be paid $15 an hour, which is going to be a 70% increase to some of them. And if you think hey, Mr. Abraham, I want you to go to New York City. I want you to try to live on $15 an hour. And those hardworking people are cheering that like they can't believe it. I so cannot stomach the people who have no concern or care in a world about riding roughshod over poor people, poor old people, black people, disabled people, because those were the people that were going to be just summarily thrown out of that place so that the rich beyond belief people who own those buildings can get richer yet. If there's a heaven, sir, you won't know it. You will never see it. Laura writes, you are remembering correctly on the old-style sanitary napkin contraption. And the Diva Cup, she says, is not a new thing. There was another item that didn't last long in the 70s that was the same, but I can't remember the name. Well, I was out of it then, too. Do you know I lost my virginity to a guy who lived in a very big mansion, which is where I lost my virginity, on the shores of Lake Michigan, somewhere north of Evanston, Illinois. And I barely knew the guy. I had decided I had to lose my virginity, and he was willing. And when I walked into his house and saw this palatial, it looked like a castle. It was all like stone. And even inside, it was like stone. And I said, wow, what does your father do? And you will not believe how he made his money. His father invented the sanitary napkin dispenser that is in every woman's bathroom, public bathroom. Who would think that inventing a little thing that you put, at the time, a dime into, or a nickel, and turned a knob, and a sanitary napkin came out to save you, would end up being able to build a castle? But how wonderful is it that that is how I lost my virginity? I mean, it's not, but there's something funny. It wasn't. It wasn't funny at all. What a messed up person I was. Jesus Christ. Okay, so, what am I... You know what? I'm having too good a time to talk about poor Ms. Brand, but I do want to say this. I said yesterday that I'm willing to bet in this audience, not one of us has ever been stopped for failure to signal while changing a lane. Unless, of course, you're a black person. And the fact that she was not only stopped for that, but then harassed, harangued, and treated like dirt. And she naturally took umbrage, and she ended up in a jail cell. Okay. 3 days later, she's still in that jail cell. Here's the point I want to make. You don't put your blinker on making a lane change, and you end up in a jail? That's amazing. There. But you're in the jail 3 days. Why? Because bail has been set for your release. And it's $5,000. Now, I don't know if she could have gotten out by posting 10% of it, which I think often is the case. Okay, that's $500. Hey, $500? I could get out like that. Poor people can't. We now have more people sitting over in the county jail right here in our fair city. We've got people sitting there for over a year who have not been convicted of a thing. Not a thing. They're just not rich. We now have essentially debtors' prisons. And it has to stop. And the only hopeful thing is that even some Republicans agree with that now. This is one of the biggest things that the ACLU is going to be focusing on in the coming years. Getting people who do not belong in a jail in the first place out. If she hadn't been in there, she would not, this young, wonderful woman, would not be dead. The injustice of it is unbearable to me. It's unbearable when you think of the lives wasted. The injustice. But you know, poor people. They don't count. They just get in the way. What did they ever do? Did those poor people in East Liberty who lived there all that time, did they put up an ugly, shiny new building? Anyway. Okay, stop. I thought it was very exciting to read about this Quran that they found, part of a Quran, that some PhD candidate at the University of Birmingham in the UK, some woman, was looking at this thing for part of her research, and she noticed something, and next thing you know, they did some carbon dating, and the next thing you know, this thing was written clearly contemporaneously with the life of Muhammad. Now, this stands everything on its head because it was believed that it wasn't written down, that it was an oral thing until after he had died. But the carbon dating puts this thing between 610 and 632, which was the year of his death. Now, you think, carbon dating, I don't know. Did you ever know how they do that? Listen to this. Or what it is they're measuring? Listen to this. Radiocarbon dating measures levels of a heavier form of carbon as it appeared in the atmosphere over time and becomes part of plants. Plants? Yes. But then later, because animals ingest those plants, the carbon is then in the animal. In the case of this Quran, written on parchment, they were measuring the age, the radiocarbon was measuring the age of the goat or the sheep whose skin was turned into that parchment. So what they're dating is when the goat or the sheep was walking around. Isn't that something? Now, some have said, okay, but dating the parchment is not necessarily it's the ink. What if the parchment was sitting around for 100 years before it got used? Which isn't likely, by the way. And there's no way of dating the ink. But some more careful people are saying you're making the assumption that the parchment was used within years of it being made, which is probably a reasonable assumption, but still, it's an assumption. So there you have it. At this point, it is the oldest part of a Quran known to exist. And the Muslim world is going berserk because obviously. And for a few little seconds, the Muslim world is united in its joy. I forgot to get to you about how Pope Francis's poll numbers are plunging in the United States. Do you believe it? Plunging! He'll be lucky if he isn't tarred and feathered when he comes to this great country. And you know who's hating him the most? You betcha. Catholics. Conservative Catholics. Okay, Ray just says, I got to just get this in and then I'm going to go. Lynn, that letter infuriated me. Obviously, Ray had seen it earlier. I remember the Saul Alinsky lesson. He added a tenant. What would happen if she didn't pay her rent to the slum? He asked a tenant, what would happen if she didn't pay her rent to the slumlord? She said, they'd throw me out. Then he asked, what would happen if everyone didn't pay? Mr. Abrahams needs to pay attention to how much the wealthy rely on the compliance of the poor. Yeah. You beat these people down so much that they think they don't have any power, but maybe somebody like a Saul Alinsky might wake them up. And in the case of those burger flippers, which you turn your noses up, in the case of those burger flippers who took to the streets starting just 3 years ago with this campaign to up their wages all the way sky high to $15 an hour, and people laughed at them. Well, you-hoo-hoo. The biggest city in the country mandating it, throughout the state of New York mandating it, University of California system just mandated it for all of their people, Los Angeles mandated it, and you know what happens? When a person can get $15 an hour flipping burgers, they ain't gonna go work across the street at the Gap. They ain't going to work anywhere. They're going to want to flip burgers. So all those retailers who pay slave wages are going to have to come up too. And that's the power of the poor when they organize and stop being compliant. See you Tuesday.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.